Haven Arrest Missionary Baptist Church Sunday School Lesson number 3, Sunday, September 18, 2016. The lesson is entitled The Foundations of the Earth. The lesson comes from Isaiah chapter 40, verses 21 through 31. We were asked to read Isaiah chapter 40, verses 1 through 31. The place is Jerusalem. The time is 695 to 700 BC. The theory of evolution is not just a false view of the beginning and development of life. It is an insidious, satanic philosophy designed to remove God from people's lives and thereby release them from any accountability to Him. Many of the problems we see in society today really have their roots in evolutionary dogma. This study exalts God as the creator to whom all are accountable. Help your students see the power of God in creation and in their lives. Today's aim: facts to understand the sovereign control of God over creation and other nations. Principle: to see the sovereign creator as the source of strength and power in our lives. Application: to wait on the Lord to provide the strength and help we need for life situations. Illustrating the lesson: the sovereign God is the foundation for our lives. The golden text reads, "Hast thou not known, hast thou not heard, that the everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth, fainteth not, neither is weary. There is no searching of his understanding." Isaiah 40:28. Today we have two outlines: the Lord's sovereignty over the earth, Isaiah 40:21 through 26, and the Lord's care for his people, Isaiah 20:27 through 31. Introduction. Since the beginning of time, human beings have tried unsuccessfully to comprehend the fullness of God's nature. Using their finite and fallen minds, they have fashioned concepts and images they can somehow understand. Thus, it has been said that as God created man in his image, men have turned around and created gods in their image. They insisted that their deities must fit into their limited and distorted understanding. The municipality of gods came about because unregenerated men refused to acknowledge a single divine being. Separate deities have to be assigned to all the forces of nature and all the functions of life. Only as we study the Bible can we begin to appreciate the transcendence of the one true God. He reveals himself there as the creator of all and the sovereign Lord over his creation. As this week's lesson reveals, he concerns himself with the heavens, the earth, and all the details of life therein. The Lord's sovereignty over the earth. Isaiah 40, verse 21. Have ye not known? Have ye not heard? Hath it not been told you from the beginning? Have ye not understood from the foundations of the earth? Verse 22. It is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, that stretcheth out the heavens as a curtain, and spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in. Verse 23. That bringeth the princes to nothing, he maketh the judges of the earth as vanity. Verse 24. Yea, they shall not be planted, yea, they shall not be sown, yea, their stock shall not take root in the earth, and he shall also blow upon them, and they shall wither, and the whirlwind shall take them away as stubble. Verse 25. To whom then will ye liken me, or shall I be equal, saith the Holy One. Verse 26. Lift up your eyes on high, and behold who have created these things, that bringeth out their host by number. He calleth them all by names, by the greatness of his might, for that he is strong in power, not one faileth. A call for godly understanding. Isaiah 40:21. The questions raised at the beginning of our passage grow out of a larger message of comfort for Israel. The Lord assured them that after their captivity, he would gather and care for them as a shepherd does for his sheep, verses 1 through 11. He would be able to do this because of the infinite power and wisdom he exercises over nations, verses 12 through 17. He contrasted himself with powerless idols fashioned by men from previous metals or woods, verses 18 through 20. The four questions posed in Isaiah 40:21 gently chided any in Israel who may have been tempted to see God as no different from any pagan deity. Have ye not known? Have ye not heard? Hath it not been told you from the beginning? Have ye not understood? All anticipate the same answer. You should have. Israel of all peoples should have known that their God was unique. The opening question implies that the Lord's power and Godhead are evident from creation itself. Psalms 19:1 through 6, Romans 1:19 through 20. The second question calls attention to his self-revelation in words to Moses and the prophets. Genesis 1 through 2, Exodus 20:1 through 6, 1 Kings 18:36 through 37. These are words they should have heeded, but often did not. 2 Kings 17:12 through 15, 2 Chronicles 36:14 through 16. Israel had been told the truth about their God from the very beginning. His sovereignty was manifested in creation, the flood, the leading of their patriarchs, and the exodus from Egypt. Their history had been nurtured by the retelling of these mighty deeds, a retelling that went back to the founding of the earth. They should have understood that their God was almighty and in no way to be compared with graven images. The Lord compared with human rulers. Isaiah 40:22 through 24. The Israelites lived in the midst of powerful and ambitious rulers and kingdoms, Egypt, Assyria, and Babylon. Each had or would have its turn at dominating Israel. But Isaiah places these in their proper perspective to comfort his people. The power of God transcends all of them. The Lord is he that sitteth upon over the circle of the earth. Isaiah 40:20. The circle no doubt refers to the horizon. God sits as ruler above the highest point of the earth. Job 22:14, and observes its inhabitants from this vantage point. They appear to him as grasshoppers. The Israelites had seen themselves in this light before the giants of Canaan. Numbers 13:31. But even the giants are dwarfed in God's presence. He also spreads out the heavens like a curtain or canopy. To him, the blue sky is like a thin, gauzy fabric that he has put in place with ease. It is also likened to a tent for dwelling in. This should probably be taken as a tent for earth dwellers. The earth surrounded by the heavens is thus the gigantic abode of man, and Almighty God sits enthroned over it all. Isaiah 40:23 expands on the nature of God's sovereignty over human affairs. He allows no one, even the most powerful rulers, to exercise unlimited power. He bringeth the princes to nothing and maketh the judges of the earth as vanity. Princes are those with the highest esteem and influence, yet he reduces them to nothing. Judges, Isaiah 40:23, are those who enjoy the power to rule and render judgment, yet God will make them as vanity. This speaks of a state of desolation, such as the condition of the earth before the Spirit prepared it for habitation. Genesis 1:2. Princes and judges are somebodies in the eyes of their peers, but they are nobodies in the eyes of the Lord. Job 12:17 through 25. Indeed, their demise often occurs with great suddenness before their ambitions can come to fruition. Isaiah prophesies that they shall not be planted, yea, they shall not be sown, yea, their stock shall not take root in the earth. Isaiah 40:24. Three figures of speech are used to illustrate this transcendence of power: being planted, pictures a tree that, not having time to take root, is torn out. Psalms 37:35 through 36, Daniel 4:14. Being sown applies the same principle to seed that has scarcely sprouted when the hot sun scorches. James 1:10 through 11. The last figure refers to a tree that has been newly planted and has had no time to put out new growth. A mere breath from the Almighty causes those with ruling power to wither. The wind of God's power then carries them away as a whirlwind carries away chaff. Just as the heavier grain falls to the ground and the lighter chaff blows away in the threshing process, the rulers who think themselves important are of no value whatever to the Lord. He discards them at will. Now, how foolish are those who allow power to corrupt them. Even after Nebuchadnezzar was told of his coming humiliation, Daniel 4:22 through 27, he was blinded by his pride. He boasted, "Is not this great Babylon that I have built for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power, for the honor of my majesty?" Verses 30. God humbled him quickly. Yet modern dictators have learned nothing from him. Adolf Hitler boasted that his Third Reich would endure 1,000 years, but it lasted only 12. And evidence of the Lord's control. Isaiah 40:25 through 26. The question, to whom then will ye liken me, or shall I be equal, repeats the question of verse 18, except that it comes from the Lord, not the prophet. The former occurrence contrasted him with graven images. The second contrasts him with heavenly bodies. This was necessary because the Israelites were susceptible to the worship of these as well. Jeremiah 7:18, 8:2, 44:17. The Lord called the Holy One in Isaiah 40:25 because of his separateness from his creation, invited Israel to look up to the heavens and behold who have created these things. Verse 26. Far from being deities, the heavenly bodies are mere creations doing the will of the Holy One. The word for created here is the same as that used in Genesis 1:1. But God's relationship to the stars and the planet goes beyond mere creation. He sustains them in their courses. He leads their host out by number. He calls them each by name. Because he is great in power and mighty in strength, not one of them is missing. The control pictured here is amazing, considering the millions of celestial bodies inhabiting the universe. The Lord is likened to a military commander marshaling his troops. Not only does the Hebrew for host in Isaiah 40:26 mean armies, but the verb for bringeth out is also used to describe military action. 2 Samuel 5:2, Isaiah 43:17. Sun, moon, and stars all have their individual places and purposes in this Israel army, and they fulfill them at the behest of the Lord. Jacob 38:32. The Lord also calls each of the heavenly hosts by name. A name indicates the function and characteristics of an object. In naming each heavenly object, God reveals his understanding of its nature and purpose in his plan, and no two are alike. And as he musters them for service, none fails to appear. Not one of them is missing. As long as he has a purpose for a celestial body, it will remain. And he does this through the greatness of his power, the Lord's care for his people. Verse 27. Why sayest thou, O Jacob, and speakest, O Israel, my way is hid from the Lord, and my judgment is passed over from my God. Verse 28. Hast thou not known, hast thou not heard, that the everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth, fainteth not, neither is weary? There is no searching of his understanding. Verse 29. He giveth power to the faint, and to them that have no might he increaseth strength. 30. Even the youths shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall. Verse 31. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. A faulty assumption. Isaiah 40:27. God's sovereignty over creation has personal implications for his own people, but they often fail to appreciate it. The Israelites, in their despondency, wrongly assumed that he had forsaken them. When Isaiah wrote this, the 10 northern tribes had already been captured and deported by Assyria, and Judah was living under the threat of Assyrian invasion. It was therefore easy for them to claim that their way was hidden from the Lord and that he had disregarded their just cause. Isaiah therefore addressed the whole nation, Jacob and Israel included in the captive northern kingdom, to tell them how absurd their claim was. The claim that their way was hidden from the Lord assumed that God did not see the hardships Israel was then experiencing. They did not acknowledge his omniscience. He had lost sight of them. The claim that their just cause was disregarded by God assumed first that they had a right to a favorable verdict in his court, and second, that God was ignoring this right. In their view, their difficulties proved he had forsaken them. Israel's wrong assumption is universal among his people even today. Beset by troubles, we assume our God has forsaken us. Though we staunchly declare his sovereignty over creation, rulers, and nations, we bring him down to our own level when considering his relationship with us. We assume him to be either unconcerned or powerless. A call for godly understanding. Isaiah 40:28. As he had earlier in verse 21, in verse 28, the prophet again rebuked Israel for the absurdity of their assumption by pointed questions intended to spur godly reflections. Hast thou not known? Was an invitation to think of their own experience or that of the nation in the past. Hast thou not heard? Called their attention to the revelation of God's nature, especially as proclaimed by previous prophets. Such reflection would reveal their God as the eternal God, the self-existent Lord Yahweh, the creator of the earth from one end to the other. Thus, he is unlimited in regard to both time and space. He never faints or becomes weary, and there is no fathoming the reach of his understanding. He is neither too weak nor too unaware to aid Israel. And Israel must always remember that God, in his infinite understanding, knows exactly what they need and exactly when they need it. An assurance of the Lord's strength. Isaiah 40:29-31. Not only does the Lord not grow weary or faint, he also giveth power to the faint, and to them that have no might, he increases strength. The two statements in this verse mean essentially the same thing, and the repetition gives added emphasis. Whatever the need, his strength is sufficient to meet it. Those who are fainting under extraordinary problems or exhausted by the rigors of daily life can by faith draw on the infinite resources of the Lord. None are exempt from the need of his strength. Even the youths shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall. Isaiah 40:30. Isaiah illustrated his point by focusing on those who are normally the most physically durable. Youths are those in the bloom of life, yet their endurance is limited. Given enough exertion, they become weary. Young men is a term derived from the verb to choose. They are the choice young men fitted and trained for any athletic event. Yet even these will eventually utterly fall. Thus, even the fittest are limited in strength, and some may even die in the prime of life. But the spiritual resources God provides are limitless. The ones who can claim them are those who wait on the Lord. Waiting on him entails trust and patience. Rather than quickly assuming that God is weak, unaware or unkind, such individuals have the faith to trust his integrity and the steadfastness to await the fulfillment of his promises. Psalms 27:14. Those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. Isaiah 40:31. Renew means to change or exchange. They exchange their own limited strength for the infinite strength of the Lord. As a result, they are equipped to face any circumstances of life they may encounter. Some circumstances require that they soar upward on wings of eagles. These are the exceptional crises demanding that the child of God rise up and soar above the tragic or depressing conditions he or she faces. There are other occasional stressful situations that require saints to run without growing weary, exerting extraordinary energy. But most of the challenge of God's people is the ordinary, constant grind of everyday life that requires them to walk and not flag. This is the area in which we are most tempted to rely on our own strength and thus become exhausted and despondent when we fail. This text reminded Israel, as it reminds us, that the Lord can sustain his people in any circumstance of life. The God whose power created the universe sustains it and directs nations, and rulers will also faithfully uphold all who wait on him. Questions. 1. Why did the Lord need to chide Israel with the questions at the outset of our lesson? 2. Why did Israel need a reminder of God's sovereignty over rulers? 3. How does Isaiah picture God's relationship to his creation? 4. What is the status of human rulers in God's sight? 5. What danger was illustrated by the experience of Nebuchadnezzar? 6. In what way are the heavenly bodies like an army of God? 7. What faulty assumption did the Israelites have about their relationship to the Lord? 8. What reflection should have convinced Israel of God's power? 9. How did Isaiah illustrate the fact that everyone needs God's strength? 10. How are life's experiences like soaring, running, and walking? This concludes the Sunday School lesson for Sunday, September 18th, 2016. Thank you for listening. God bless.